Hi there, I'm Mr. Orr, and today I want to review a little bit of algebra for our geometry class. In particular, with our midterm coming up soon, we're going to have a couple of problems that involve factoring and using the process called FOIL. So I just want to go over that process, and there are three problems that I put up here on the board. So let's take a look at the first one. Typical kind of problem would be you have a rectangle and one of the sides is labeled x squared and the side opposite labeled negative x minus 15. And because it's a rectangle, those two sides are equal. So we can say x squared equals negative 8x minus 15. Now, since we're going to be factoring, I want to bring everything over to this side. So I have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0. Now, let's set up the parentheses for factoring. And we know that the first two terms are going to have to be x and x because x times x will give us our x squared here. We also know in this particular case all the signs are going to be plus. Makes it a little bit easier. Now over here we need two numbers that multiply together to give us 15. Either 3 times 5, or, let's make that a little better, 3 times 5, or 15 times 1. But we also know that those two numbers have to add together to make an 8 in the middle. So 3 times 5 is the only possibility because 3 plus 5 is 8. So it's a 3 and a 5. Now let's go through the FOIL process to check our answer. So if we do first terms, that's x times x, or x squared. FOIL, you recall, is first, outer, inner, last. So the outer terms are x times 5, or 5x. The inner terms 3 times x, or 3x. And the last terms 3 times 5 is 15. All right? Now, let's combine the two middle terms. 5 and 3, we have 8x, so it's x squared plus 8x plus 15. And that got us back to where we started, right here. So, in fact, we have the right answer. Okay, let's take a look at number 2, because each of these that I put up here, each one is slightly different. So the second one would look like this if I gave it to you as a problem. X squared on one side of the rectangle, negative 4x plus 12 on the other. So that would give us x squared equals negative 4x plus 12. Subtract this part from both sides, and we get x squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. Now, the thing to notice about this is you have two different signs here. So that's a little bit different. It's not going to be quite as easy as when you had two pluses here, but it's not hard. So again, we set up the parentheses, and again, we put an x here and an x here. And again, we look at the numbers that could give us a 12, which would be 3 times 4, 2 times 6, 12 times 1. Now, we need two numbers. Remember that the only way to get a minus sign here is if you have a plus times a minus. A minus times a minus would give you a plus, and a plus times a plus would give you a plus. So this is the only possibility for signs, and it doesn't matter which one goes where because everything is the same so far. So, we now take a look at these, and that means we're going to take the difference between the two numbers to get a 4 here. Well, 12 minus 1 is 11, 4 minus 3 is 1, or negative 1, and this one is going to work, 2 and 6. Now the question is which one goes where? Well, you can test them out and try, but you can also look and see that this is a plus, plus 4. So I would like the bigger of these two numbers to be the plus, and the other one to be the minus. So in other words, if I now test it with FOIL again, I get first terms x times x, x squared. I get outer terms, x times negative 2 is negative 2x. Inner terms, plus 6x, and last terms minus 12. And these two turn out to be negative 2x plus 6x is 4x. So that, in fact, gets us the answer we want. Now, what I didn't do the last time, and what I will do this time, is to tell you how to find the actual answers for x, because that's what we're seeking here. So in fact, we need either this number, this term, to be 0, or this term to be 0, because this side needs to match that side. And for this side to match that side, one of these two terms which are multiplied together has to be 0. If this one is 0, then I'm going to have 0 times x minus 2 equals 0, which is true, because 0 times anything is going to give you 0. If this term is 0, then I'm going to have x plus 6 times 0 equals 0, which is also true, because 0 times this is going to be 0. So one of these two has to be 0 for this to work. That means we have two possible answers. We have negative 6 and we have 2. Now, you really should go back and take a look and make sure they both work. Let's see. Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 6 times negative 4 is 24, plus 12 is 36. So that one checks. Let's look at the other one. 2 squared is 4. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8, plus 12 is 4, and that worked also. So there's your answer, negative 6 and 2. All right, let's go on to the third one. And that one is x squared, and on the other side of the rectangle, 12x minus 32. So x squared equals 12 here. Let me write that a little bit higher. X squared equals 12x minus 32. All right, so x squared minus 12x plus 32 equals 0. Same process all over again, equals 0, x. Okay, I need two numbers that multiply together to give 32. So that could be 4 times 8, or 16 times 2, or 32 times 1, or 2 times 6. I got that. Okay, I think I have all three of them. Okay, now, in the middle, notice the signs now. We have a plus over here and a minus over here. The only way to get a plus here is if I either multiply a plus times a plus, here and here, or a minus times a minus. In this case, it has to be a minus times a minus because the middle term is a minus. So I'm going to put those signs in. Now I'm looking for two numbers that combine to give me a 12. And that's going to have to be 4 and 8. So let me put a 4 here and an 8 here, and let's see if that works. X times x is x squared. Outer terms minus 8x. Inner terms minus 4x plus 32. All right, so now we have, combining the middle terms, we have x squared minus 12x plus 32. So that's what we had right here, so it worked. And now we want to go back here and find the answers, because we need now either for this term to be 0 or this term to be 0. So if this term is going to be 0, x has to be 4, because 4 minus 4 is 0. If this term is going to be 0, then x has to be 8, because 8 minus 8 is 0. So we have two possible answers, 4 and 8. Now let's see if they work. Over here, 4 squared is 16. 4 times 12 is 48, minus 32, which is 16. So that worked. 8 squared is 64. 8 times 12 is 96, minus 32 is 64. So both of these work, and there's your answer. X equals 4 and 8. Now, let's do one more thing here, because some of you may prefer the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula equals, x equals opposite b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And no, I'm not going to sing it because this video is going on YouTube, and I don't think that I want anybody except the students in my class to know how badly I sing. So let's take any one of these. Let's go back to this first one again. We had originally x squared plus 8x minus 15, plus 15, sorry, equals 0. And when we factored it, we had x and x plus 3 plus 5. That was our factorization. And the part I didn't do, I will do now, which is to say x must equal either negative 3 or negative 5. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Negative 5 plus 5 is 0. So I'm going to put those answers up here. because I'm going to want to make sure that those are the answers I get. So x has to equal -3, -5. All right, now let's go back to the quadratic formula, remembering that if you have x squared plus 8x plus 15 equals 0, the a in this formula, you have an a here and an a here, the a is 1. It's the number in front of the x squared. The b is 8, and it goes with this sign. So if it was minus, it would be -8. And the c value is 15. And again, the plus goes with it. So we're going to take those numbers now. So I have opposite b. So -8 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 64, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is 15. And that's what I get over 2 times 1, 2a. All right, inside the radical, I have 64 minus, now 4 times 1 is 4 times 15 is 60. 64 minus 60 is 4. So that gives me -8 plus or minus the square root of 4 over 2. Now let's make some room over here so that we can finish this. And that's going to look like -8 plus or minus 2 over 2, because the square root of 4 is 2. So that's going to be -8 plus 2 is -6 over 2, which is -3. That checks with that answer. And the other answer is -8 minus 2, which is -10 over 2, which is -5, and that checks with that answer. So in fact, the quadratic formula is just an alternate way of solving a quadratic equation to find the values of x, and sometimes it's very useful because some equations are not factorable. Those who are I will say this, some people prefer factoring, some people prefer the quadratic formula, and in fact, we won't review it today, but there are also some other ways to solve quadratic equations. But this is what you'll need to do, this is what you need to know for the exam. Thank you very much.